I will introduce Dr. Priscilla Vandyck-Sey for today's session. So without much ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Priscilla Vandyck-Sey.
Thank you very much. Okay, so good evening, everybody. And as you rightly mentioned, we'll be doing the networking essay for the Chevening Scholarship. And I'm happy that you've already had some previous sessions already on the other essays as well. So I have two main objectives this evening. Is to, first of all, inspire you that you can try and get any scholarship you aim for. And even if you try once and you are not successful, don't give up, just keep trying and you eventually may be successful at it. So although what I'll be sharing today is specific for the networking essay for the Chevening, those who want to apply for the Chevening Scholarship, there are some principles that can apply for any admission processes, personal statements, etc., that you have to do. And then secondly, I'll be sharing exactly what I did for my networking essay as well. So the outline is broadly divided into a general overview, and then we'll look in detail at what I actually submitted for my networking essay. So this is me in August 2021, and I'm sure you can see all the excitement on my face. It was actually the same day that I received my award letter, and it happened to be my birthday as well. And then when you get a successful award letter, they tell you to take a picture, post it on their social media handles, etc. That was the first time I think I created a Twitter account because it was something that was needed. So for those of us who are not very social media savvy, when it comes to some of these things, you have to learn how to get around it just to give yourself some kind of presence as well. Okay. And so for the eligibility for Chevening, this I lifted verbatim from their website. And they are talking about the fact that you need to have some kind of work experience. So it's not only for, so if you are currently in school, it's not something they recommend. At least when you complete school, you should have done some kind of work before. And it is not necessarily permanent work. It can be any kind of work. It can be volunteer work, paid or unpaid, internships, remote work, etc. So if you are waiting for permanent employment and it's not coming, see in what way you can help in your community. It can be your church, helping out in somebody's shop, or anything at all, just so that you are building your CV. And it's not about only paid work, but it's something that you engage in, which adds value, and you can put it out there as contributing to your CV as well. So this again, I lifted from the website, but when you look at pitebi.com, in terms of what should be captured in an essay generally, usually you should be truthful, you should be concise, and it should be well written. And when you look at what the Chevening website says about exactly what you should put in when you are doing your essay, they talk about the fact that there should be evidence of your leadership potential, and there's an essay that you should look at for that. You should also look at exhibiting your networking skills. You give an overview of your personal goals and also how you will benefit your country. So please take note of how you will benefit your home country. It's a very, very strong point that should come across in almost all the 4 essays. And exactly what your understanding of what the Chevening Scholarship is. So what we should remember again is that the before you are even invited to come for an interview. It is the essay that is going to tell them about you. So the best first impression you have is from your essay. And so this should be taken seriously. You make sure that if you draft it, you let other people read it, you run it through softwares that check for typos, grammatical errors, etc. Because you have only one chance to give that first impression for any particular year. And as we all know, you can keep trying over and over again, even if you don't succeed the first time. But at the bottom here, it says all 4 essays are equally important and equally weighted. So that means whatever you write for your career plans, whatever you write for your networking, whatever you write for your leadership is weighted the same way. And so all of them should be taken seriously. So I looked up some information to see if you're writing an essay on networking, what can you do? And the scholarship mentor mentioned or advised that usually when you're writing all typical essays, there should be an introduction, there should be a body, there should be 2 examples, and then a conclusion. And keep in mind also, you might be limited in the number of words. I think for Chevening, you are limited to about 500 words. Other processes might give you more allowance or lower numbers. So you just need to make sure you are sticking by whatever recommendations you've been given. And you just use this kind of format where there's a brief introduction, you look at the body, give examples as much as possible, and then you conclude. So your introduction, the most important thing is that it should be interesting. And if you are writing about networking, it should be something about networking. And so you need to find a captivating way to get the reader's attention. The next thing we've talked about, give examples of how your networking skills begot another networking opportunity or opportunities. And you use the essay to illustrate the composition of your unique network. It doesn't have to be everybody in your network, but in whatever you are describing, you let it become clear that you worked with people, they impacted you, you also impacted them. It can be people higher than you, it can be people at your level, it can be people who are lower than you, and it can even be people outside of your chosen profession. But it is important that you make sure that whatever you are illustrating, you have to bring across that there was some kind of good result or an outcome to a community, a group of people, or an institution. And usually when it comes to describing the example, I think I mentioned that you have to talk about introduction, you have to talk about the body, and then you have to talk about the 2 examples, and then you conclude. But in describing your example, everybody's example is unique. In describing your example, it means that there has to be a particular way you use the example, or you describe, or you write up the example. And when you look at the internet, they give various ways that you can use it. And a very common method is using the STAR method. And the STAR method is not only for this or writing up essays. You can even use that method when you also attend interviews and they ask you, for instance, to tell them in a particular situation what you did. And the STAR method, you talk about a situation, you talk about a task, you talk about the action, and then you give your results. So it sort of answers the questions. Example, describe a time when you were encountered a particular situation. So the good thing about the networking essay that you are writing is that you are going to choose the situation. You are going to choose the task that you perform or you were supposed to perform in that situation to address the situation. And you are the same person who is going to illustrate what your action or your activities were. And then you also have to bring out what the results was. So when you have a situation, what is the situation we are talking about? You have to illustrate the scene. You set the stage and give your context. And this is what you put in your essay. Very simply, depending on how you're going to write it. So I'm just giving you this kind of framework, and then later we will look at exactly what I put in during my my essay. So another thing is, as you are listening to me right now, think about an example or the example you want to share, that you want to write down. What situation do you think your networking really helped, and you were pivotal in helping to ensure that there was something positive that came out of the situation? Your impact, or if you were not involved in trying to resolve that situation, the outcome that came out would not have come. So it is something to illustrate how pivotal you were, and you have to link it to some kind of networking situation that took place, or people within your network. The second thing is about the task. So what was your role? What was your responsibility in that said situation? And you have to state this clearly and boldly. So what specific tasks did you have to take up to handle the situation? Is it possible that maybe, for instance, maybe there was a patient who needed help? I'm using patient because I'm a doctor, but I'm just using that as an example. And you personally didn't have any funds, but then maybe you knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, and you went out of your way to ensure that they had an idea that this particular patient needed help. And so here is a case, it is your networking. The situation is that there's a patient who needs help. You have set your task that I will find a way to get this patient help, and you rely on your network to do that. So the action, for instance, is indicate and or describe the specific measures or initiatives you took as an individual. So the example that I just cited briefly. So you decided to maybe call somebody, you decided to write letters, maybe you wrote about 5 letters, maybe you wrote several letters, etc., but you didn't give up despite the fact that you were getting negative feedback, etc., etc. You are creating a story. You are trying to be as truthful as possible. You are being mindful of the words that you need to capture as well, but you're also remembering that there has to be some kind of flow to the whole thing. And somebody's networking essay cannot be the same as yours, because your situation that you choose to write about will be different from somebody else's. And then your results. So in this case, you've written your letters, you've had a number of negative results, but then you persist, you write one, and then out of that, somebody comes and says that, you know what, I'm not going to only help this patient, but for the next 2 years, I am going to help any patient who is in need. And so you realize that this is, although it's sort of like, how should I say, it's a fictitious story. It is something that can actually take place, and it can be somebody's story. But at the end of the day, you are getting the fact that there was a situation, there was a task that you set to do, you took a particular action, and the results even became bigger than you anticipated. So I've also put here under results that you put in the specific action you took to address the situation. And as much as possible, it also helps if there are figures. So you can say that, oh, initially it was only one person who was in need, and that person's story really touched me. And then I decided that I am going to make sure I write as many letters as possible to just get this one person done. But there was this snowball effect that took place. And at the end of the day, when I found the right person who was willing to come and support, over the past 2 years, since this person started supporting, we have had about 50 patients who were vulnerable, who have been helped. And so you straight away, somebody can picture, wow, there was one person who benefited and suddenly it's been 50. Okay, so that is easier for it to be imagined. So that is how you write up the example using the STAR approach. So very soon, I'm going to go into exactly how I did my networking essay. But I just thought that I should put it here because whilst you are here in Ghana, you have networks around you. You go to church, you have networks. You are in school, you have networks. You go to work, you go to parties, you are networking, etc. So I just put this here that even when you find yourself in school, you are successful in the scholarship, wherever it is, you still have to continue the network. So this is a picture of a group of people who were doing the same masters with me. Some of them are Chevening scholars, some of them are not Chevening scholars, but then we all gathered together and took a picture. Some are Africans, some are not Africans, but then just remember, networking does not end. It's a continuum. I think I have another picture. So this is a group of some of us from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And I think these are Chevenists from the African region. So we have, this is, I think, a Ghanaian. And then this gentleman here is from Morocco. This lady is from South Africa. This gentleman here is from Cameroon. So the networking never ends. So now let's see. So before I go into my networking essay, what do you think networking is? Networking is an exchange of information and ideas among people with a common profession of special interest. And it's also where you meet people and you are hoping that whilst you aim to meet up with the person, something positive or something useful will come out of that interaction with the person. And the networking skills that you are hoping to illustrate is showcasing your abilities or your competencies and how you are able to maintain any interpersonal connections, okay? And you can describe it in a way that shows that this was the point where I met this person, and this is how our network blossomed into. And it provides a perfect opportunity to meet, to interact, and to connect with like-minded individuals, to exchange views and explore opportunities. So I'm going to share my networking essay, but before that, I just want to give you some certain things that had happened in my life that inspired my networking essay. So first of all, I had met someone who imparted knowledge to me. It was a skill. And when I start the essay, you will understand. And then I shared what I did with the knowledge I acquired. So it's like the knowledge I acquired, I didn't keep it. I shared it and decided to utilize it. And I also shared how I also helped the person. So what I did with the knowledge the person had given me was in the essay. What I did with that knowledge or how I even acquired it was in the essay. How I also helped the person in turn was in the essay. And then the second part of my essay looked at how I met another person where an idea I broached to them was accepted, and then that eventually benefited many people. So the next phase, I'm going to read my networking essay word for word, and then later we can have questions around it. But this is how our networking question was crafted in 2020 when we were applying for the scholarship. So it says, Chevening is looking for individuals with strong networking skills. who will engage with the Chevening community and influence and lead others in their chosen profession. Explain how you meet this requirement using clear examples of your networking skills, and outline how you hope to use these skills in the future. So the minimum words should be 100 and the maximum word count should be about 500. So this was my introduction. This is how I started my essay. I have always viewed networking as an opportunity to build mutually beneficial long-term relationships. As such, I have seized such moments in the past and continue to look for such opportunities wherever I find myself. More importantly, I am convinced that one's network is worthless unless it impacts positively on others. So this was my introduction. Then I start. In January 2015, I attended a workshop in Accra and made the acquaintance of a Ghanaian female colposcopist based in the United Kingdom. So for those who are not in the medical profession, colposcopy is a scale or a procedure where you use an equipment to look at the womb of a woman, especially after the person has undergone cervical cancer screening and you think that she needs additional screening. So that's the background. So this colposcopist was based in the United Kingdom. I discovered that we had a common interest of improving women's health, particularly in the area of cervical cancer prevention. Through this network and under her tutelage, I was trained in colposcopy, a procedure used to conduct follow-ups after abnormal cervical cancer screening results. After this training, I set up a women's clinic in my health facility in conjunction with other clinicians. More than 1,000 women have benefited from cervical cancer screening and other preventive health checks since the inception of this clinic in January 2015. Furthermore, as a lead clinician for this women's clinic, I have been able to pass on the skills I have acquired to other clinicians. So I hope you are getting the picture. There are figures here, there are specifics here. What you've done with your networking, the skill that you got from her through a networking of what you acquired from her, you didn't only benefit from it, you decided to benefit people in your circles, and then additionally, there were people in the community who have benefited. Then the next thing is still part of the flow of what I was trying to depict. Recognizing that the Ghanaian UK-based colposcopist was making self-funded trips to Ghana to help train clinicians in colposcopy, I looked for an opportunity to make her visits and knowledge and skills transfer more sustainable. A colposcope was also needed to facilitate training of clinicians. I saw an opportunity in the temporary return of qualified nationals TRQN project executed by International Organization of Migration through one of my networks and acted with alacrity. So the truth of the matter is that this colposcopist had been coming down on her own to do this kind of training. And when I found out, I was like, wow, how can I help? I didn't have any answers there. But I think there was a fun fair or so in my kids' school, and then I met a friend from church who just casually told me that, oh, IOM is doing something like this. So if I know anybody I think can benefit, I mean, straight away, this was the woman that came to mind. And so to cut a long story short, we eventually worked everything out, and then you see that illustrated in the next paragraph. So the TQRN project sponsored Africans in the diaspora contributing towards development in their countries. I nominated her and worked together with IOM officials who facilitated her remaining trips to Ghana in 2015. Another benefit from this effective networking skill was the donation of a mobile colposcope as part of the sponsorship from IOM. This medical equipment is still in use at my health facility in Accra, and more than 200 women have had colposcopies done in the clinic. Again, specifics and how people have benefited is also stated. Then my last example was another demonstration of my strong networking skills has been my ability to collaborate effectively with institutions on mutually beneficial projects. In June 2016, I met an American family physician and co-founder of Amani Medical Foundation, a nonprofit organization in the USA in Ghana. This NPO was involved in medical missions in Ghana. I promoted the idea of a free annual cervical cancer screening outreach for women in underserved areas in Ghana, which was previously not one of their focus areas. Through this collaboration, a well-patronized women's health fair was successfully organized in 2018 and 2019, with more than 700 women being screened for cervical cancer and about 50 receiving free cryotherapy treatments. So again, specifics, figures, showing how people benefit and from what. And I concluded by saying, I intend to leverage on the opportunities that the Chevening community presents to collaborate with other alumni after my study in the UK in the areas of policy, research, and advocacy, especially on issues that affect women's health. In addition, I plan to mentor Chevening scholars and other individuals in the future who aspire to explore areas within my area of expertise. And that is how I ended my essay. So we should ask ourselves, why should you be given a Chevening scholarship, which is worth so much money? It is not for the benefit of you as an individual. It is for the benefit of what you as an individual can do for your nation, for the larger community, and your immediate network of people, and also for the Chevening community as well. So whilst you want to illustrate what your networking is, think about vulnerable populations, less privileged, disadvantaged, the poor, widows, women, children, girls, boys, mentally challenged, the sick, etc. It can be anything. It doesn't also have to be people who are vulnerable, but how are you impacting the community or people in your circles? Try as much as possible to illustrate using what you have done and what you have contributed. And really, if the scholarship is all about you, think about how you can write all your essays to make sure that it's about what you can use your talents and your skills to do to benefit the community. And it makes it more compelling. So this is my opinion, even as I conclude. The kind of people Chevening looks for are those who have given back to their community in the past. So you should have done something in your community that you can write about. You are still doing it and you plan to continue giving back. And so once that is something that inspires you, it becomes easier to craft some kind of message around what has happened in the past and what is happening and what you hope to or you aspire to do.